Good evening. We will call the scheduled meeting for tonight with the City Council to order. And we're going to begin with an invocation, and I've asked Mr. Walter Jones to handle that for us. And following that will be the Pledge of Allegiance. And please stand with me.
Let us pray. Thank you, Lord, for allowing us to come here as a council and as citizens. We ask your guidance as we go through the meeting. We ask that all of our deliberations are handled with respect to one another. We remember the reason for this Advent season, and we remember all of those less fortunate than we. We thank you for the gift that you brought to the world. Let's remember the love that you bring. Help us walk in that love during the weeks of Advent. And as we prepare for the coming, we pray for the name of Jesus. Thank you. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Jones.
You're welcome.
All right, Mr. Burgett, can we have a roll call, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Gwaltney?
Here.
Mr. Thames?
Here.
Mr. Higginbotham?
Here.
Mr. Wolverton?
Here.
Mr. McCluskey?
Here.
Mr. Jones?
Here.
Mrs. Smith?
Here.
Mr. Wyatt?
Here.
Mrs. Andrus?
Here.
Mr. Wright? And Mr. Limbaugh?
Here, we have 10 in attendance. To my knowledge, well, let me ask this. Did we get a chance to get the minutes from November 27th?
I don't believe they've been.
Okay, well, that being the case, we will put that off until
She didn't
January of
resign.
2018. To my knowledge, we didn't have any board vacancies or appointments tonight. Okay? That being the case, let me make quite a few adds to the agenda tonight. So if all of you will bear with us, we will make notes of these. We'll start with, and all of this is, am I correct? Almost all of this is new business, Ms. Salter?
Most all of it's old business.
Old business. I'm sorry, you're correct. All right, we'll start with 03-11-17, which is a request for final budget amendments to the fiscal year 16-17 budgets requested by Melody Salter, our finance director. This was carried over from 12-4-17. Next one is 05-12-17, which is the request for consideration to set bid opening for the Public Safety Center Bid Package 1, which is the abatement and demolition, requested by John Hanson and Chief Tim Ross. All right, the third one is 06-12-17, request for consideration of declaring the following vehicles in parts surplus property. I am going to read 4 vehicles, and I'm just going to list the last 6 of the vehicle identification number. It's a 2003 Chevrolet pickup, ends in 160681. 2006 Ford 500, the VIN ends in 187714. It's a 2006 Ford Crown Victoria. The VIN ends in 156290. And a 2002 Chevy Tahoe, and the vehicle identification number ends in 176873. And this was requested by Gordon James, our fleet maintenance manager. All right, the next item is 15-10-17, which is request for consideration of an ABC 040 retail beer on and off premises and an ABC 060 retail table wine on and off premises for Urban Cookhouse LLC, doing business as Urban Cookhouse, located at 1920 29th Avenue South. Requested by Melody Salter, our city clerk. Next one is 17-11-17. Request for consideration of an ABC 020 restaurant retail liquor license for BBB Homewood LLC, doing business as Big Bad Breakfast, located at 1926 29th Avenue, Suite 200. Again, requested by Melody Salter, our city clerk. Next item is 02-1117, request for consideration to allow work within the city right-of-way to plant 2 October Glory red maple trees at 307 Broadway, requested by Jennifer Drake, the property owner, and Wyatt Pugh with our BEZ department. All right, 08-1217, public hearing set for December 18th, which is tonight at 6 p.m., for consideration of a variance to the Homewood sign ordinance for an oversized sign at 800 Green Springs Highway, requested for Urban Air, requested by Wes Daniel with Daniel Signs, and Wyatt Pugh with our BEZ department. Next item is 13-1117 to add back request to approve the bid opening held December 18th at 5 p.m., which was today for
Recycling.
Recycling, thank you. I did not write that down. Moving on to new business other, we have 18-1217, request for consideration to amend the warrant ordinance being 2682, requested by our city attorney. And then 19-1217, which is a request to appoint Robert Burgett as assistant city clerk, requested by Mayor McBrayer. Are there any other additions to the amended agenda for tonight? Okay. There being none, the chair would welcome a motion to approve. Motion from Mr. McCluskey, second from Ms. Smith. And any other discussion? There being none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any opposed? Mr. Gwaltney, were you? Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to single you out, sir. All right, we're going to move on to, there is no consent agenda items tonight, so we're going to move on to the old business agenda. And the first item is 19-1117, public hearing set for January 16th, 2018 at 6 p.m. for consideration to allow a 6-foot wood privacy front yard fence along the right property line beyond the front of the house and olive hedges along the front property line located at 1012 Melrose Place. Request by Linda Needham, the owner, and Vanessa McGrath, our BEZ department. And we will set and carry over that public hearing for, again, January 16th, 2018 at 6 p.m. Okay. 22-1117, public hearing set for December 18th, 2017 at 6 p.m. for consideration of the zoning application of the City of Homewood to rezone 123 West Oxmoor Road, 100 and 900 Homewood Park West, 240 Snow Drive, from M1, which is light manufacturing district, to I1, which is institutional district, to I3, which is institutional district, for the purpose of rezoning 7 parcels for consistent zoning owned by the City of Homewood to permit the development of West Homewood Park. Note that this request was considered by the Homewood Planning Commission at its meeting of November 15th, 2017, resulting in a favorable recommendation of 6-0, requested by Vanessa McGrath, our BEZ department. And we'll start, did we already have a report from P&D, from Planning and Development? Mr. Thames?
Yes, it did.
Oh, okay, well, excuse me. We had that written down
Oh,
wrong.
that was my mistake, putting this in our committee then,
Yeah,
yes,
and
it was
I
special
reported
issues.
it out last week. We sent it out 5-0 pending the public hearing, so without recommendation pending the public hearing.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate it, Ms. Smith. And we will open that public hearing. Is there anyone who would like to make comments? We'll start with Ms. McGrath.
Yes, sir. I think you covered everything, but this is just the rezoning of West Homewood Park. There's multiple pieces of property, and just trying to clean up the zoning, because we had a couple of different zonings. We had I3, I2, and M1. So we're trying to get them all consistent for the park situation.
Any questions of Ms. McGrath?
I have the representative engineer if you'd like to see the designs or
I
plans.
think it has value to put it where it can be seen, at least by the public.
You should have copies.
Yes. Yes, I'd just like for them to be able to look at it, yes.
And I'm Curtis Eatman with LBYD, 716 South
Sure.
30th Street. If there are any questions, I'll be glad to go through the features of the project if anybody from the public has any questions.
Any questions or comments from the council? All right, well, again, that's sort of an FYI, just anyone who would like to see it. Yes?
So I don't see the upper fields on the diagram. The upper.
Get your
well,
name,
that purpose
please.
field up beyond the baseball field, where is that?
This one?
Ah, yes, okay, sorry. Orientation was thrown off.
No problem. All right, is there anyone else who wants to speak to this matter? If there is not, we will close this public hearing, and we'll start with the first reading. Mr. Kendrick.
Mr. Limbaugh, I'd like, before I read it, this is a type zoning ordinance that requires the approval of a development plan prior to approving the zoning ordinance. The development plan is what you see in front of you and is attached to Exhibit B to the zoning ordinance. So it'd be appropriate this time for the council to approve this development plan before you can consider the rezoning of the property.
No problem. Do we need
Just by
a...
motion.
Oh, just a motion?
Yes.
Okay.
Second.
Motion from Mr. McCluskey, second from Ms. Smith. Thank you for the point of reference. With that, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That is unanimous. Thank you, sir. Now,
Yes, sir. This is an ordinance to amend Ordinance 1602, titled Zoning Ordinance and Zoning Map of the City of Homewood. Whereas the Planning Commission has favorably recommended to the City Council that property described here be rezoned from institutional zoning I-2 and M1 light zoning to the City of Homewood I-3 and institutional zoning district. Whereas the council has found it necessary to set a public hearing is to set the same for December 18, 2007. Whereas after the adoption of the ordinance, the zoning and the uses permitted will be controlled by the zoning ordinance and the development plan attached to Exhibit B. Whereas now therefore be ordained by the City Council that the following described property, and it's described in Exhibit A with a legal description, and the street address as Mr. Limbaugh has previously listed, 123 Oxmoor Road, 100 Homewood Park West, 900 Homewood Park West, and 240 Snow Drive, be taken out of the M1 light manufacturing and I-1 institutional district and rezoned I-2, subject to the final development plan previously approved prior to the adoption of this ordinance, which final development plan is attached as Exhibit B. And that from and after the enactment of the ordinance and approval by the mayor, then the uses permitted for this property will be limited to those uses set out in the I-2 zoning district and the final development plan attached to Exhibit B. And that the public hearing is set today, at which time all persons interested may have an opportunity to speak for or against the adoption of the ordinance. Section 5, that any part of provision of the ordinance declared to be unconstitutional or invalid by a court of competent jurisdiction, all other parts not otherwise affected shall remain in full force and effect. Section 6, that the ordinance shall become effective immediately upon its passage by the City Council and approval by the mayor as otherwise becoming law.
thank you, sir. Is there a concern, Ms. McGrath?
Yes, sir. Did I hear you say I-2 as the zoning? instead of-
I-1, I-3 is the zone.
No,
Is
no,
it
goes
being
from
rezoned to
M1.
I-3, correct?
Correct.
Okay, I'm sorry. I just misheard.
No problem, thank you.
I just wanted to make
All right, Chair would welcome a motion and a second for unanimous consent.
Second.
Motion from Mr. McCluskey, second from Mr. Thames. Roll call, Ms. Sullivan, or
Second,
Mr.
Burgett.
Burgett, okay.
Mr. Gwaltney?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Thames?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Higginbotham?
Yes.
Mr. Wolverton?
Yes.
Mr. McCluskey?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Wyatt?
Yes.
Mrs. Andrus?
Yes.
And Mr. Limbaugh.
Yes, so this will be ordinance 2683, and the chair would welcome a motion and a second for adoption.
So moved. Second.
Okay, Motion from Mr. Gwaltney, second from Mr. McCluskey. Roll call, please.
Mr. Gwaltney?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Thames?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Higginbotham?
Yes.
Mr. Wolverton?
Yes.
Mr. McCluskey?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Wyatt?
Yes.
Mrs. Andrus?
Yes.
And Mr. Limbaugh?
Yes, so 2683 is passed unanimously. We'll move on to 301117, public hearing set for tonight for consideration of condemning a house at the following address, 528 Yorkshire, requested by Wyatt Pugh. And again, did we already do the report from Planning and Development? I don't think so.
I don't think we did.
So we'll let you go.
Yes, sir. The committee met, and after hearing a report from Mr. Pugh, voted 5-0 to send it out without recommendation pending the public hearing.
All right, thank you. All right, we will open this public hearing and welcome any comments, starting with you, Mr. Pugh.
Yes, sir. I don't know if you recall, but this is the one we discussed that the gentleman came in wanting to issue a permit, and I told him I would run it by you all. I did go ahead and approve the issuance of that permit. I've included a picture, and that's all I included from this one. That's from today. It's actively under construction. He understands. He would have liked to have been here tonight, but he's in Peru. So it was inconvenient.
Well, it's a matter of priorities. Excuse me. All right, any questions of Mr. Pugh?
I assume the permit is just, he's going to renovate the house and sell it.
That's my
Yeah.
understanding, yes.
Well, is he going to renovate it or
Or tear
demolish it?
down.
No, it's being renovated.
Okay.
Go ahead, sorry.
This was the house that really just had a hole in the roof, is that correct?
That's correct. It's directly across from Brookwood Mall.
Well,
You just walk across the street and you're there. It's not that bad.
Yes, but-
It's not that bad a condition, saving for the hole in the roof,
Right.
which is being addressed,
sure.
has been addressed.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Are there any other
Ms. Andrus,
neighbors?
I'd be curious to hear from you.
Yeah, this is right around the corner for me. I go by this house every single day, and I have seen the dumpster out front, and I knew that they were getting underway. I did communicate with a neighbor. Is there anyone else here? Miss Taylor, have you talked to Miss Taylor, the next door neighbor?
Was that about the unkempt?
No, she had, she's the one that put this in motion several months ago.
Oh, okay.
And so I just reached out to her when we put the public hearing on and mentioned that, we knew that there was interest and that someone was going to be working on it, and she seemed to be satisfied. She was going to make plans to try to come tonight, but I think she just had a baby.
All right.
So I just was wondering if she was here or not.
So just for the record, Mr. Pugh, your recommendation is?
That we allow this gentleman to continue with his rehab of
Understand.
this house.
I understand. Well, when we get to the end of the public hearing, yes. Yes. Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay.
I appreciate it. Anyone else want to speak to this particular matter? If not, we will close this public hearing and welcome a motion of some.
Based on Mr. Pugh's recommendation, I would move to drop this.
I'll second that.
All right, motion from Ms. Smith, second from Ms. Andrus.
Mr. Limbaugh,
Yes, Mr. Thames.
just to comment, I'm thrilled to see the progress and have no doubt that, well, don't have any reason to doubt the gentleman will complete it, but given that this is a lengthy progress to get to this point, should we close the public hearing but then carry over the item just to see that he makes satisfactory progress? That way, in the event he doesn't, we don't have to start from square one.
You will have to start from square one once we issue him a building permit, he makes changes to the building. It's not in the same condition. It was determined to be unsafe by the abatement
Okay.
board. So
I'm sorry, one at a time.
That's good enough?
I'm sorry.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Any further questions or discussion? Being none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? There is not, so 301117 is dropped. We'll move on to 311117, public hearing set for tonight for consideration of condemning a house at the following address, 2516 17th Street South. Mr. Wyatt, But first, before we open the public hearing, report from Planning and Development. Mr. Thames.
Yes, sir, the committee met, and after hearing a presentation from Mr. Wyatt, voted 5-0 to send it out without recommendation pending the public hearing.
Thank you. We will open that public hearing now, Mr. White. Mr. Pugh.
Excuse me, I've provided you with some pictures of this particular house. The day after I took these pictures this past week, a gentleman came in, and he's here tonight. He bought the house, and he wanted to go ahead and make repairs to get it into a safer condition, closing up some of the open windows for a start. So I did issue him a permit based on that, because he did submit some plans showing that he's got plans to remodel this house. I'll be glad to provide progress reports if needed, but he's here to speak to his plans.
All right, if you are here to speak to it, please give your name and address to our city clerk.
Sure. I would like to address that this is a very long process that we started with City of Homewood.
Okay, first,
We actually cleared
your
a
name and
debt.
address. I'm
My
sorry,
name is
sir.
Dimitri,
Okay.
and last year I came in front of the City Council and asked about to clear a debt from 1934.
I remember.
City of Homewood actually issued us a claim, the quit. And it was resolution number 1681. So it took a year to find all of the inheritors and so on and so forth. We also paid everything that was owed at that property, and just a week ago, we finally completed the documentation and the property was transferred to us. We already secured all the broken windows that was given on the report, which I have the pictures.
Could we see those, please, sir?
Yes. And we posted signs, so this, and there's a building permit. So the condition of the property is currently safe, and it's posted as per regulations. And we will start redoing the roof and the windows as soon as we can.
Sir, do you have a timetable for this?
We'll probably be done within 6 months.
6 months.
6 months seems, commentary on my part. 6 months, you could build a home on that.
Yes, sir, but
Property.
we don't have that many means and many builders here, and it will be a little bit slower process. But, it took us 2 years to clear all of the problems that that property had. So we just asking, just give us a little bit more time, because,
Again,
we try to comply with every single, and it's just a roof. We might probably will finish as soon as we can.
it is not my intent to be argumentative, I assure you. I understand that the paperwork was old and laborious. Having said that, that's a whole different matter than doing the physical labor to bring this home into legal compliance and something that the neighbors would be pleased with.
Right. This property is located in Rosedale, and as you
I understand.
are aware that a lot properties around that area are not very
We're
big.
dealing with your property tonight.
Yes,
so
sir.
Come on.
I would assure you that we will finish as soon as we possibly can. We already ordered the dumpster, so we're going to start demolition of the old roof as soon as we can.
Mr. McCluskey?
Yes. Have you seen the sheet that was provided to us by Mr. Wyatt?
Yes.
You have? Okay, so you understand that it's not just the boarding up of one window and then replacing the roof. There is significant damage listed, structural damage that is part of this house. So, I mean, it's not just
Mostly
replacing a
the-
roof that's going to get you off of
It's-
the situation we're in right now.
It's mostly a roof and, like I said, broken windows and one pillar that is not attached to the structure, then it's not straight.
This entire front porch is a danger to the public. It's completely pulled away from the house.
Right.
So it's more than just a roof.
Well, the front porch will be demolished, that part that is falling apart, which is not part of the foundation. It's a separate structure.
All right, Mr. Wolverton had a question.
Oh, I was just trying to clarify the timeline for which the property was purchased. I understand there was some tape that you had to clear, but how long ago did you take
The
possession?
original petition before city council was on July 11, 2016. And the quit claim deed was provided on July the 12th.
Of the
And
same.
after that, from the city of Homewood, and after that, we could start the process of locating all of the inheritors. See, the original owner and her daughter and the granddaughter all passed away without any legal paperwork. So we had to unravel pretty much, I would say, 30 years of improper paperwork. And if that claim deed was from 1934, from the city of Homewood.
I
So
remember
obviously,
Excuse me, I remember we had a spirited conversation about the date. I do remember that.
right.
Mr. Kendrick
Yeah,
is,
there's been no work done on this, Mr. White? No, sir. This is a little different than the previous home because there is work in progress based on your photographs. That's correct. So I see no reason we couldn't continue this for a period of time to see how the work's progressing because there's been nothing done. At some point, he's either going to progress the house or we're going to tear it down.
Right, we couldn't start it because we had no ownership. We could not
Yeah,
obtain.
I
the
understand,
permit.
but you do now.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
the clerk has asked me, could you spell your last name and give us your street address?
Sure,
I got your
I'll
first
just
one, but I don't
give
think-
that the license.
where's the permit? Hold on, we'll give you the
Is
permit.
it, okay.
Right here.
Give him back his
No,
license.
I'll be glad to provide 30-day progress reports, or however you'd like to see it.
We'd like a 30-day progress report, Mr. Pugh. All right? Thank you, Dimitri, and forgive me for using your first name. I hope that's okay.
Thank you.
All right. Anyone else that wants to speak to this matter? There being no one, then we will close this public hearing. I heard some conversation about a possible motion here that we don't really need a motion.
Should
Can
we
we-
close the hearing or leave it open?
I just closed it. I'm sorry.
You could continue to a date certain.
Well, I see what you're saying. Okay. Then let me negate that closing of the public hearing, and we'll revisit this at our next council meeting, okay? We will leave that open. Thank you very much. You're exactly right.
We're going to continue it then to the 16th
Yes,
of
we are.
January.
And Mr. Pugh, you can give us an update on the 16th. Okay, good, thank you. All right, 321117, public hearing set for December 18th, at 6 PM for consideration of condemning a house at the following address, 1612 25th Court South. Report from Planning and Development, Mr. Thames.
Yes, sir, the committee met and heard a presentation from Mr. Pugh and voted 5-0 to send it out without recommendation pending the public hearing.
Thank you, sir. We will now open this public hearing. Mr. Pugh?
All right, I've provided you all with pictures and also with a report on the back. Rather than stating the obvious, just stating code violations. But as I think the pictures speak for themselves, this house is terribly dangerous.
Yes.
It's a major fire load. It's filled with debris. It's wide open children can get in. This is a danger.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
So therefore, your recommendation
My
is to
recommendation
proceed.
is to proceed. Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. Anyone else who would like to speak to this particular item? And please, ma'am, if you will, if you'll sign your name and address in first, I would appreciate that.
Now,
Sure. Thank you, ma'am. And your name and address is?
Charlene Hamner Turner.
Okay, Ms. Turner.
Address is 3900 Court K, Birmingham, Alabama.
Okay.
And I'm here speaking, the property is air property. I've been trying to get my siblings to come along and try to come together and do something with the house. Unfortunately, that hadn't happened. So I'm the only one speaking.
I understand.
I didn't know the house was that bad off on the inside. I haven't been there in a long time. I have been talking to somebody about doing some home improvement on the house. I know it's a lot to be done, but I'm asking that you give us some time. I never received any information saying that the house needed anything done to it. Like I said, I haven't been there. I never received anything from the RDCD. I never received anything from the city. When there was something placed in the yard about the cleanup of the yard,
Yes,
they did do that. Other than that, we hadn't received anything. Had it not been for Facebook, Jeremy putting it on Facebook, I never would have known.
There's a
So-
notice on the front door.
Okay, I just got that on Friday, an orange letter that was there. Other than that, I hadn't seen anything, hadn't received anything.
The problem is, the only people we know to give notice to is those people who are listed on the tax rolls. And apparently, you're not listed on that.
Okay, I'm the one that's paid taxes since my mom passed.
Yeah, but your name is not on that list.
It should have been.
We understand, Ms. Turner. This is not criticism, this is a statement of legal fact. You know, that if we don't have the information to contact you through tax rolls, then what can we do?
Okay, I'm just saying, the people on the RDCD, I mean, they know me personally, they know my whole family, and nobody's even tried to contact us to try to do anything, I mean, to give us any information.
Okay, I would also have to say to you respectfully, Ms. Turner, that if we posted the notice on the building, then all of us have an obligation as heirs and property owners to check on it on occasion. The problem today is that it is not safe for the children and the neighbors of your community.
Right.
Or the Holmes community. And that's really the problem here.
I mean, I understand that. Like I said, I've been talking to someone about doing some home improvement. He said he would do it. He would work with me to get it up to code. I mean, and that's what I'm here today for.
All right. Thank you,
Just
Ms. Turner.
asking for
Any
some
other
time.
questions?
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
I was just saying, asking for some time because, like I said, I didn't know that it was like that.
I understand. Mr. McCluskey?
Yes, when was the last time somebody actually resided in this house?
I don't know, probably 12, 14 years ago, maybe.
Okay.
All right, any other questions? Ward 1?
And I know you just found out about this. Do you have any sort of timeline in mind?
No,
Or have
because-
you had anyone inspect the home to
No,
frankly
no
see
one.
if it could even be brought up to code?
No, like I said, I've talked to a guy, Terrence Umstead. I mean, he's a home improvement person. Nobody's inspected, no.
Mr. Turner, that house is in terrible shape.
Like I say, I'm just not saying that I
I
didn't.
don't know that it can be repaired, but I'm not an engineer. But Mr. White can tell you that Structurally, that home is beyond repair.
All I'm asking is that I get time to see if it can be inspected and if anything can be done about it.
The process here is, by law, you have 30 days.
Okay. I mean, if you give me 30 days to see if I can get it, if it's maintainable, get it done.
Let me just explain, if it's okay, Mr. Limbaugh?
Please do.
The process is, if they determine this is a public nuisance and it's unsafe, and it just, I think there's a very good chance that could be found, then you have 30 days from the time that city council determines this, then essentially to appeal it to the circuit court or to come in and get a permit. The last thing the city wants to do is go to the time and expense to tear it down, but we can't really tolerate that kind of property. It's not fair to the neighborhood. It's really not fair to anyone that lives by. You wouldn't want to live next door to it.
No, I mean, but like I say, all I'm asking is for some time to see
Well,
if it can be
if
inspected.
the council adopts a resolution defining it as unsafe, then you have 30 days to appeal this to circuit court or take some corrective action.
Okay,
But it's going to be challenging.
I understand.
All right. Anyone else have a question, Ms. Turner? Thank you, ma'am. We
Thank you.
appreciate it. We understand. Anyone else want to speak to this matter? If they do not, then we are going to close this public hearing. And I would ask for any comments from the council. There being none, Chair would welcome a motion as a second.
Mr. President, I did want to clarify, Mr. Kendrick, the property does not change hands as a result of this process.
No, sir. It's owned by whoever owns it. And I'm not sure. All we know is Mr. White can tell you that he gives notices based on the last person who assessed the taxes.
Okay, so it's just leaned for the cost.
Based on public records, that's how we have to give notice under the state code. If it's whoever's originally assessed in, that's who got the notice.
I was just trying to clarify that once it's condemned, it does not become city property. It's just,
Oh, no,
the
we
condemnation is that we're going to,
All we can do by this statute simply is we can demolish the property to remove the unsafe condition. We don't take the property, and then the cost associated with demolition of the property would be assessed as a lien on the property.
okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, Chair would welcome a motion and a second for approval.
Mr. Limbaugh, can I ask another quick question?
Sure.
If she comes to the meeting on the 16th with credible proof moving forward with the plan and permits pulled, in other words, I'm asking, can we do the same thing that we did before, which is carry it over to the next meeting?
That is certainly an option, Ms. Andrus. I would,
Well, I'd like to ask a question. I mean, I'm really concerned about the level of really unsafeness. With these doors wide open and this porch collapsed, is there not some way that it can be secured? I mean, I would think that at the very least, we would require there to be some steps taken before we do anything to make that safer, because anybody could walk in that house at any point, and I just don't see that that's... Yeah, or it could catch fire at any minute, I would
well,
say.
Ms. Smith, we're trying to, I guess, take
Yeah, I guess
take
what I'm
a
saying
step as
is-
quickly as we can.
Yeah, I guess what I would say is I think, in my opinion, I'd like to proceed with the process, and then in that 30-day time, that's sufficient time to figure out if it's savable or not.
All right, is that a motion, Ms. Smith?
Yes, I would move to.
Do we have a second?
That's Resolution 17206.
Yes.
And it finds the building unsafe and orders the demolition.
Yes.
After the building.
Yes.
Do we have a second?
Second.
I'm sorry, second from Mr. White. All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so 17206 passes unanimously, and we will move on to 331117, public hearing set for tonight for consideration of condemning a house at the following address, 2708 17th Street South. Report from Planning and Development. Mr. Thames.
Yes, sir. The committee met and heard a report from Mr. Pugh and voted 5-0 to send it out without recommendation pending.
Thank you, sir. We will now open the public hearing, and Mr. Pugh?
You should all have pictures of this house as well. This house is pretty shockingly bad, but there is a situation that's come up. Miss Kelly Bounds closed on this property Thursday. It was her intention actually to be here tonight up until Friday, when she contacted me and said her mother, who lives in Coleman, had gotten ill and she was not going to be able to make it. I asked her with that if she would write me up about a paragraph or so, letting me know what her plans for the house were that I could sort of hand off to all of you. I've included that on these pictures in this report as well, so you can see she broadly outlines what her plans are.
Why don't we read this for the public?
Sure,
if you would. Or would you
certainly.
like me to? I don't. It's written to you, so you read it.
I'll be happy to. She wrote to me, Wyatt, I plan on having the property cleaned up first and put a front door and lock on the front door for starters. I'm attempting to line up a contractor to provide an estimate or advise on what to do with the home. Hopefully, I'll be able to get him lined up the last week of the month or the first week in January, and we'll have a better idea of timeline. Just cleaning up the yard Tuesday will be a big improvement. And then she tells me about her mother. The fact that someone bought this house and closed on it Thursday, I don't know if I should say, I don't know what she was thinking, but the house is what it is. It's terrible, and it's a danger. And, at the least, if you want to give her some time, at the very least, I could provide you some progress reports. I don't know.
Mr. Wolverton?
I think for the sake of consistency, and given the incredibly bad shape that this one is in, including a floor that is rotting out and falling apart, that 30 days, as we just did with the previous home, is more than ample time to do those things. And I think I would move to.
Well, wait a minute.
Oh,
We're still in the
sorry.
hearing.
You're right. Sorry.
We're still in
So,
the
but I think that's more than fair and is in line with what the new owner is asking. So I think we can still proceed. But
I understand. It's a bit of a paradox for you, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Well, here, can I explain? Essentially, if the council determines it to be unsafe, as you believe it is.
Yes, sir.
In its current condition.
Yes, sir.
If Ms. Bounds comes up with a plan to present to you with contracts, things that you would say that would reasonably represent it's going to be repaired, then you can come back to the council. This authorization just allows you to demolish it. It doesn't require you to do it necessarily. If you determine that there's a reason it can be rehabbed, which I'm not a contractor, but I doubt that it can be, then you can come back and tell us that. And we can essentially choose not to demolish it.
Okay.
But to not abate it, it really creates liability for the city once you've brought it to our attention that we have to move forward with the process. And
Yes,
certainly she can intervene by bringing a good faith proposal that you're convinced it will rehab this property, if it can be. I don't know that somebody looks at it can be, but not economically. Would you agree?
I would definitely agree.
And the process is, if they determine it, then she has 30 days to appeal that or to come to you with some evidence that it can be rehabbed.
Yes,
At
sir.
this point, I don't think there's anybody that feels like it can be, just looking at it. Do you?
No, sir. I do not.
If she can convince you otherwise, you can report that back at the next meeting.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else who would like to speak to this particular matter? If not, we're going to close this public hearing. The chair would welcome a motion.
So moved. To condemn the house at 2708.
Okay, right.
17th Street.
Motion from Mr. Gwaltney, second from Mr. Thames. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That is 17-207. Okay. 341117, public hearing set for tonight for consideration of condemning a house at the following address, 1613 25th Court South. Report from Planning and Development, please.
Yes, sir. Committee met and voted 5-0, send it out without recommendation pending the public hearing.
Thank you. We will open the public hearing. Mr. Pugh?
Once again, everyone should have a report and pictures. This house, compared to some of the other ones, was not terrible. However, it does meet some of the broad criteria for demolishing or abatement, rather, I guess you should say. It's open. That's the problem. That's the main problem. The broken windows in the rear, there's lots of trim missing around the edges. I took some pictures of. That's where squirrels and other pests have been making their way in and out. So, I mean, it's actively deteriorating as we speak. I don't know what the inside looks like. The doors were secured. The access to the back door, I was not able to actually get over to it to take a good enough picture because it was so grown up. But the steps going up to the back porch were completely collapsed. They had just fallen off completely. So it appeared that the back door was secured, but I was not able to get up to it. But it's open to pests, and it's neglected.
So what would your recommendation be, Mr. Pugh?
Well, I really wish someone would come forward with a plan to fix it. Without a plan to fix it, I don't know that the city has any other alternative, or that I would have any other alternative than to recommend that it's a danger that should be abated.
Yes, sir. Any other questions of Mr. Pugh on this particular item? Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Is there anyone else who wants to speak to this particular item? And Mr. Pugh, I'm sorry, please, go ahead. Your name and address, please. You've heard from no one that owns this property, right?
When we were there taking pictures this past week, a gentleman who lives across the street did come out and told us that it was his father's old house. Right now, I have heard from some people who, and I believe you're here representing them, it's under inheritance litigation. They're trying to work out who the rightful owner is.
Thank you. Ma'am?
I'm Laura Decker with Galloway, Scott, Moss, and Hancock, and I represent Jessica Bailey. The long and the short of it is we have our final order from Judge Buhacker granting her title, but we're waiting for the clerk's office in Jefferson County to, the circuit court clerk to issue the deed to her. She's ready to demolish it. I have a demolition bid that we presented to Judge Buhacker. We brought the case in May of 2015, and he issued his final order on November 2nd of this year. 42 days have expired since the entry of that order, so there won't be an appeal. And we're literally just waiting for the clerk's office to issue her deed so that when she does the work, she's doing it under her own, that it's assessed in her name, that she can have the property assessed in her name and be able to.
She plans to demolish it.
She's going to demolish it, yes. They're going to build a home. They have 2 children, another on the way. Her parents live across the street. They had plans drawn up a while ago, and it just has taken a long time because the property was owned by her grandfather, and the deed went back to 1944, and we had to clear up a lot of, had to bring a petition for sale for division, and she had to buy the property.
You would have no objection to us finding it unsafe, would you?
I would request instead that y'all continue this for 30 days, and then we can come and instead of having the order of condemnation in place, I'm hoping as soon as she, as I said, I have the final order here, and I have her demolition bid. They're ready to act, but she needs to have the property in her name before she makes that kind of investment. It's an $8,000 demolition bid. But so I would request that y'all continue this hearing, and we'll be back hopefully won't have to be back, and we can present it to Mr. Pugh, and the house will be gone. That is the intent, and they've been wanting to demolish it and build it. They've been ready in the last 2 years.
All right, what we'll do then, Ms. Decker, is continue this public hearing until January the 16th.
Okay.
but we're going to need to close this public hearing and have resolution at that point, okay?
Yes, thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
All right, let's move on to 08-12-17, public hearing set for tonight for variance to the Homewood sign ordinance for an oversized sign at 800 Green Springs Highway, Urban Air, West Daniel, Daniel Signs, and Mr. Wyatt Pugh, BEZ, report from Special Issues. Who is doing that?
Me,
report?
it's me.
Oh, there you go, Ms. Smith.
We met previously this evening, and we voted 5-0 to send this out without recommendation pending this public hearing tonight for the sign variance. It's a size variance request.
All right, thank you. We will now open the public hearing, and I think Mr. Daniel in just a minute is going to be the first one to speak.
Yes, sir. West Daniel, Daniel Signs.
Into the microphone, please.
West Daniel, Daniel Signs. We have a lighted channel letter sign to go up on the front of their building, Urban Air Raceway.
All right. Of course, we, most of us saw this earlier. Is there any additional questions of Mr. Daniel? Thank you. Appreciate it. Anyone else want to speak to this matter, for or against? If not, we will close this public hearing. Welcome comments from the council, and a motion and a second.
Mr. Chairman, comment, not a motion. I'm very happy to have Urban Air there. I think it's a fantastic facility. I'm excited about Raceway coming to that facility. But I cannot in good conscience vote for this sign, which is, I don't know exactly what word I would apply to it, but is a variance much larger than what the sign would normally be allowed to be at that location. And I just want to make clear that that my vote tonight, which will be no, has nothing to do with the business that's there or them adding the raceway. I think it's fantastic. I hope it's very successful, and I wish them all the best. But I just cannot in good conscience vote for a sign of that size at that location. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Higginbotham. Anyone else?
Yeah.
Mr. Jones?
Well, can we get some guidance from the committee? Because I thought it was consistent with what was already up there. And they're just adding the raceway to the sign, and the fact that it's so far back from Green Springs, visibility-wise, that you would need a larger sign. That's what I understood the
Well, it was
discussion to be.
the sign that was previously there for the Mission Possible thrift store, or not, I don't think that's called a thrift store, but
No.
the Mission Possible store that was there previously. This was the size of their sign. Now, it was not lit when it was the Mission Possible because they weren't open at night. But the sign that was there previously, which has been taken down, was this size. And so they are putting this new sign in the same place as that old sign existed. But this one will be lit as opposed to the other one because Urban Air is going to be open at night, I believe. That's correct? Yes. Yes.
Any other comments? I would say to you that I tend to agree with Mr. Jones. I do. So, Mr. Jones, is that a motion?
Well, if you don't mind, just really quick, I know what you're going to say, but what was it, 5 or 6 years ago when we first had Mission Impossible come in, they had the same question as to, because I mean, it was that part of Mazur's at that point? I think it was, but that was just their warehouse. So it wasn't actually, a business on its own. The Mazur's was all up front, and they had come to us for the simple fact that it is so far back there that they requested a variance to the sign, and we approved it. So, I would vote for it.
All right. So, Chair would welcome a motion.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. McCluskey, second by Mr. Gwaltney. My hearing is better in my left ear than my right. So. So, thank you. They got the crud, okay. All right, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed?
No.
Okay, so this passes 8-2. I'm
Myself.
sorry, what? And this is Resolution 17209. Okay?
208.
208, I'm sorry. Thank you. I see what I did wrong. Thank you. All right. 09/12/17, public hearing set for tonight set for January 16th, 2018 at 6 p.m. for consideration of condemning a house at the following address, 2531 18th Place South, requested by Wyatt Pugh, and we will carry this over for the public hearing at that time, January 16th, 2018. All right? Next item, 13/11/17, request to authorize the bid opening held today, December 18th at 5 p.m. for, help me, recycling, yes, thank you. That's twice. Requested by Melody Salter. Mr. Jones.
Yes, Mr. President, the bid opening was tonight at 5 o'clock, and the recommendation would be to award it to Republic Services as the lowest responsive and responsible bidder at $3.60 per household.
All right, thank you. So we have a motion from Mr. Jones. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. McCluskey. All in favor, please say aye.
Can I ask a question?
Sure, Mr.
I just want
Go.
to clarify this. Does the contract include any language regarding marketing services and what sort of marketing they're going to be required to do to the citizens of Homewood to make sure they have a clear understanding of what items may be placed in the recycling can and those which cannot?
I think Berkeley's got to work with him that he was.
I can read what the proposal says. It says, in terms of the bidder's proposal, education and incentive programs to residents to encourage participation in the recycling collection program. Incentive program has been canceled going forward and no incentive program available to this bid. The public services will continue to work with the city and Brian Wallace to update the Homewood website for educational purposes. Educational materials and videos can also be found on our website, www.publicservices.com. That's what the proposal is.
So essentially, they're not going to do anything different than what they're doing right now.
He said when we talked to Gary Stigman, who's a representative, he said he'd be open to talking to the government commission about how we
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? All right, so we have a motion and a second. Is this a resolution, Mr. Kendrick? Okay. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, this will be 17-209. Thank you. All right, 03-11-17, request for final budget amendments to fiscal year 16-17 budgets, requested by Melody Salter, our finance director, and Mr. Jones.
Yes, sir, Mr. President. The Finance Committee met tonight at 5 o'clock and voted 5-0 to approve the final budget amendments for 16-17.
Good. All right, we have a motion from Finance. Any questions or comments? There being none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That's Resolution 17-210. And we move on to 05-12-17, request for consideration to set bid opening for Public Safety Center Bid Package 1, which is the abatement and demolition, requested by John Hanson and Chief Tim Ross. And we will set that opening for 2/1/18, February 1st, 2018, at 2 p.m. at City Hall. Okay? Next item is 06-12-17, request for consideration of declaring the following vehicles and parts of vehicles surplus property: 2003 Chevy pickup, 160681, 2006 Ford 500, 187714, 2006 Ford Crown Victoria, 156,290. 2002 Chevy Tahoe, 176,873. Report from Finance. Mr. Jones.
Yes, sir. The committee met, voted 5-0 to approve declaring those vehicles that you mentioned surplus property.
Thank you. So we have a report from Finance, first reading from Mr. Kendrick.
Yes, yes, sir. It's an ordinance to declare certain municipal property surplus. It's hereby established and declared that the following described personal property of the city is no longer needed for public or municipal purpose, and they're declared surplus. And Mr. Limbaugh has adequately described the property. Section 2, the mayor and city clerk be authorized to dispose of the property by auction to the highest bidder.
All right, thank you, sir. Chair would welcome a motion and a second for unanimous consent.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Higginbotham, second by Ms. Smith. Roll call, please.
Mr. Gwaltney?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Thames?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Higginbotham?
Yes.
Mr. Wolverton?
Yes.
Mr. McCluskey?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Wyatt?
Yes.
Mrs. Andrus?
Yes.
And Mr. Limbaugh.
Yes, so this is ordinance 2684, and Chair would welcome a motion and a second for adoption.
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Smith, second by Mr. Higginbotham. Roll call, please.
Mr. Gwaltney?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Thames?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Higginbotham?
Yes.
Mr. Wolverton?
Yes.
Mr. McCluskey?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Wyatt?
Yes.
Mrs. Andrus?
Yes.
And Mr. Limbaugh.
Yes, so 2684 passes unanimously. 151017, request for consideration of an ABC 040 retail beer on and off premises and ABC 060 retail table wine on and off premises for Urban Cookhouse LLC, doing business as Urban Cookhouse located at 1920 29th Avenue South. Report from Public Safety, Mr. McCluskey.
Thank you, Mr. President. Public Safety met earlier this evening and met and voted 5-0 with a motion from Thames, from Mr. Thames, having no objection to the issuance of a license pending the approval from police and fire to the city clerk's office.
All right. So we have a motion from Public Safety, and it carries its own second. If there's no other discussion, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that passes unanimously with that condition. 171117, request for consideration of an ABC 020 restaurant retail liquor license for BBB Homewood LLC, doing business as Big Bad Breakfast located at 1926 29th Avenue, Suite 200. Requested by Melody Salter, our city clerk. Again, report from Public Safety. Mr. McCluskey.
Yes, sir. Exactly the same as before. We met at 5:30 tonight, and Mr. Thames made a motion, seconded by Mrs. Andrus, voted 5-0 to having no objection to the issuance of the license pending letters to the city clerk by both police and fire.
Thank you. We have, that's a motion from Public Safety. If there are no other comments, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? 171117 passes unanimously. We'll move to 021117, request for consideration to allow work within the city right-of-way to plant 2 October Glory red maple trees at 307 Broadway. Requested by Jennifer Drake, the property owner. Wyatt Pugh with our BEZ department. Report from Special Issues, Ms. Smith.
Yes, committee met earlier and heard from the homeowner's husband, Peter Drake, who is here. And we voted 4-1 to allow the planting of the trees. Ms. Andrus made the motion. Mr. Higginbotham seconded it.
All right, so we have a motion from Special Issues. Any comments or questions? If there are none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Me? No. Sorry.
Okay, well, is that,
I think there might have been 3.
let's do this. Why don't we have a roll call on this one, please? I understand. Thank you, Mayor.
This is Resolution 211, 17211.
Is this 208 or 209?
I've got 211.
211.
211, thank you. Thank you.
Budget 210?
Do-
budget was
210 was the last.
The budget was 210.
17,211, yes.
Okay, thank you, I appreciate it. All right, please call roll.
Mr. Gwaltney?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Thames?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Higginbotham?
Yes.
Mr. Wolverton?
Yes.
Mr. McCluskey?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Jones?
No.
Mrs. Smith?
No.
Mr. Wyatt?
No.
Mrs. Andrus?
Yes.
And Mr. Limbaugh?
Yes, so this passes 7-3, okay?
Mr. Drake, I have the indemnity for you to sign, if you could put that.
All right, next is the committee referral agenda. Chair would welcome a motion and a second for approval.
So moved. Second.
Motion from Mr. McCluskey, second from Mr. Thames.
So McCluskey and Thames.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right,
Oh, I'm
that
sorry.
passes. Other new business, we'll start with, sorry,
think I
okay.
gave you the wrong-
15-12-17, which is a request for consideration of an ABC 020 restaurant retail liquor license. I'm sorry, y'all, I'm stumbling over that. For CRD Enterprises LLC doing business as Nabil's Cafe located at 1706 Oxmoor Road, requested by Melody Salter, our city clerk. Chair would welcome a motion and a second.
I would move to, having no objection to the issuance of the license pending letters from fire and police to the city clerk's office.
All right,
Second.
So we have a motion from Mr. McCluskey with that condition. Second from Ms. Andrus. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. 16-12-17, request for consideration of an ABC 040 retail beer on and off premises and an 060 retail table wine on and off premises license for Jim Marco Pizza LLC doing business as Pizzeria GM located at 600 Oak Grove Road. Requested by Melody Salter, the city clerk. I'm going to turn it over to you, Mr. McCluskey.
I would move to having no issuance or no issues with the, trying to figure out my wording
No
because I lost it. No objection. Thank you. I've said this 4 times tonight. No objection to the issuance of the license based on letters from police and fire to the city clerk's office.
All right, great. So we have a motion from Mr. McCluskey. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Ooh, I'm going to give this one to Mr. Wolverton. Okay? With nothing else, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? And that passes. All right, 17-12-17, request for consideration of approval of vouchers for the period of December 11th, 2017 through December 17th, 2017. Requested by City Clerk and the Finance Committee. Who did this?
Mr. Wright, but Mrs. Smith.
Ms. Smith is going to report for Mr. Wright.
Yes, in Peter's absence, he went over the vouchers and had questions that Ms. Salter answered, and we have no problems with approving the vouchers to be paid.
All right, so we have a motion from Ms. Smith. Do we have a second? Second. Second from Mr. Higginbotham. All right, hold on one second. Any other comments? There being none, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, so this is Resolution 17-212. Thank you. All right, 18-12-17, request for consideration to amend Warrant Ordinance 2682, requested by our city attorney. First reading, Mr. Kendrick.
Yes, sir. Trying to make sure I have the right number. Yes. What is the ordinance? This is an ordinance to amend Ordinance 2682 entitled an ordinance authorizing the issuance of not exceeding $9,750,000 principal amount of general obligation warrants, refunding Series 2017. Be ordained by the City Council as follows. City Council has previously adopted Ordinance 2682 on December 11th, authorized the issuance of not exceeding $9,750,000 principal amount of general obligation warrants. Whereas the city desires to amend the 2017 warrants ordinance by changing every reference to a not exceeding principal amount of $9,750,000 to a not exceeding a principal amount of $11 million. Now therefore be it ordained by the City Council that Ordinance 2682 be and the same is hereby amended by amending all references referring to an exceeding principal amount of $9,750,000 to a not exceeding principal amount of $11 million. That all other parts or provisions of Ordinance 2682 not in conflict with the foregoing to be the same as hereby and remain in full force and effect. Provisions of this ordinance shall become effective immediately upon its adoption by the City Council.
Thank you, Mr. Kendrick. Chair would welcome a motion and a second for unanimous consent.
Second.
Motion from Mr. Thames, second from Mr. Gwaltney. Roll call, please.
Mr. Gwaltney?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Thames?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Higginbotham?
Yes.
Mr. Wolverton?
Yes.
Mr. McCluskey?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Wyatt?
Yes.
Mrs. Andrus?
Yes.
And Mr. Limbaugh?
Yes. So this will be ordinance 2685.
Yes, sir.
Sorry, sir?
Yes, sir.
Okay, 2685. Chair would welcome a motion and a second to adopt.
So moved.
Motion from Ms. Smith,
Second.
second from Mr. Gwaltney. Roll call, please.
Mr. Gwaltney?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Thames?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Higginbotham?
Yes.
Mr. Wolverton?
Yes.
Mr. McCluskey?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Wyatt?
Yes.
Mrs. Andrus?
Yes.
And Mr. Limbaugh?
Yes, 2685 passes unanimously, and we'll move on to our final item, which is 191217, request to appoint Robert Burgett as the Assistant City Clerk, requested by Mayor McBrayer. Does this require a resolution or just a vote?
We have a resolution.
Oh, then it requires a resolution. Chair would welcome a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Smith, second by Mr. Higginbotham. Would anyone like to discuss this one? There being none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And that is unanimous, 17-213. Congratulations, Mr. Burgett.
Yeah, I think it's funny that nobody asked him, are you sure, Robert?
Oh, he's sure.
She told me earlier I was sure.
He said yes, Steve. He said yes, Steve.
I would point out that this was requested by Mayor McBrayer. Perhaps we should look to him. And speaking of the good mayor, I understand. It's good. Mayor, your turn.
Just very quickly, I'll just simply say I really enjoyed the year working with you, and Merry Christmas to all of you. Travel and be safe.
Thank you. Mr. Gwaltney?
I will be quick, considering the circumstances. I just wanted to recognize the police department for their increased patrols in the neighborhoods. I've definitely seen a larger presence this time of year. That's nice, as I hear about people not in Homewood being broken into and having their Christmas presents stolen. Second, I wanted to thank Mr. Pugh and his department for all of your hard work on the abatement cases. I know it takes a lot of time and a lot of effort, so we appreciate that, and tonight's information was phenomenal. So thank you both very much.
Thank you. Mr. Thames, when are we going to have our next committee meetings? No.
I was afraid y'all were going to do it on the 16th again before the next council meeting because of Monday being the second.
Well, some of us may be somewhere January the 8th.
No, I was saying, I was afraid y'all were going to do it on the 16th again before.
I'm sorry, say that again.
I was afraid y'all were going to do it on the 16th again before council meeting, like we did tonight.
Well, but the thing is, the committee referral is extremely short.
Didn't we already move the first council meeting to the 9th?
To the 16th.
16th.
Oh,
Tuesday after Martin.
The 8th is Martin Luther.
8th is Martin Luther King
15th,
Day.
excuse me.
8th was apparently the SEC.
No, the 15th,
No, it's, yes.
Don't worry, Dabo will take care of that.
Yeah.
perhaps.
I have a few small items, but whenever, Mr. Limbaugh, you'd like to meet.
Well, I have no problem with doing it that Tuesday afternoon if you would like, though 5 o'clock needs to belong to finance still.
Okay.
Mr. Jones and I have discussed this
Well,
extensively.
Mr. Thames, we have a meeting at 4, I mean, I'm not sure that, hey, Brett.
Never tell.
We've got a meeting at 4, the Heart of Homewood and Andy too, at 4 on the 9th.
Who, we have a meeting at 3.
And we also have planning commission on the night.
That's right.
Well, but we weren't talking about the 9th.
No, you are talking about the 9th, aren't you?
Yeah, hold on just a second.
For committee meetings? I
We've
thought you
got
were
a
talking about the 9th.
challenge. Hold on.
Can I ask
thought
how
we
many
weren't
people
meeting
would
on the
actually
8th.
go to the game if it ends up being on the 8th?
Well, again, the 8th is, well, no.
For the record, we're treating it like a national holiday.
Yes.
It is a national holiday. It's an annual event.
But I never voted to, I was not in favor of moving it either way. I would just gleefully miss, yes.
Well, all right, let's talk about interruptions on the 16th, if we do it in the afternoon. You say y'all have a meeting at?
No, I thought we were looking at the 9th because I knew we weren't looking at the 8th. So I thought we were looking at
No,
the 9th.
we're looking at 16th earlier in the
Okay.
day.
Could I
We
ask
have
a
the
high-level
chamber
question?
meeting.
Sure.
Okay, I just want to make sure. So the two planned meetings in January are the 16th and the 29th. Is that correct? Okay, so all we need to do is figure out the committee meetings between those, so.
Yes. So
Okay.
we could do Tuesday.
So Tuesday, the 9th, that evening, yeah. You know,
It's fine with me.
He's saying they have a planning commission meeting.
But there's a planning commission meeting
in here, but we can have it in our,
We have a 5.
They have the 5:30 in there.
We can move that to here if we need to, but we have a 5:30 pre-meeting and then a 6 o'clock meeting.
Or you could use the city.
Are there P and
Just
D
have it on
items
Monday, that's
for
fine.
you?
The Regional
Jennifer-
Planning Commission has asked to speak.
But do they need to, or can we?
She's
or
messaged me
second set?
repeatedly about when they can get in here to speak, so.
You know how long they want to speak?
No, I mean, I don't think it's going to be lengthy, but.
All right, yes, I think we need to have P and D.
I'm
then, I
sorry.
suppose. Are we doing it before the meeting then? On the 16th? Yes.
Yes.
All right, finances at 5. Walter, you'll probably need, after such a long break, 30? Okay, P and D at 5:30. And I better, we'll say 15 minutes and we'll just make them wrap it up. Jennifer?
Okay, I'll tell her.
And it's been a great year, and Merry Christmas to everybody. I hope you have a safe and blessed Christmas and New Year's.
Thank you. Mr. Higginbotham?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would just echo the other sentiments. Hope everyone has a wonderful holiday season, regardless of whether they're celebrating Christmas or Hanukkah or whatever your family tradition may be. It's been a good year. I agree with the mayor on that, and I'm looking forward to 2018. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Wolverton?
Just a reminder for anybody that is traveling, that police department invites you to ask for patrol, just to make sure that your home is in good standing over the holidays. And, you know, Homewood is what it is because of our neighbors as well, so talking to those folks won't hurt as well. I know I had something else, but I'm blanking on it right now. But yeah, it's been a fun year, and Merry Christmas to everybody. And just looking forward to the new year.
Thank you. Mr. McCluskey?
Yes, we'll do public safety on the 16th at 5:45, and I'll only need 5 minutes again.
5:45 to 5:50.
Mhm.
Thank you.
And Merry Christmas to everybody.
Thanks. Mr. Jones, we've set
finance is already set. So, nothing further. Just thank you for all the work, Mr. White, Mr. Pugh, rather. We always have a Wyatt.
I think Alex too.
And you too. And that takes a lot of work to put all that together. So thank you for all of that. And,
Absolutely.
And I'm sorry about last week, about missing the meeting last week. I was singing a Christmas concert, but that's no excuse for missing the fun here. So I apologize for that.
But, Mr. Jones, if you were with your son, that's more than an excuse.
I was. They invited
you
the
go.
dads to sing this year, so I was part of the concert, so it was a lot of fun.
There you go. Ms. Smith?
And thank you to, I had one
I'm
more
sorry.
thing.
So go
I
ahead.
wanted to thank JJ and Melody for coming to my concert last night.
They did.
So,
Quiet, have awesome.
so thank you. Merry Christmas.
There you go. Ms. Smith?
I will take 550, and I think I only have one item, so I'll go 555
I
to
love
leave
it.
5 minutes for Mr. Wright. And Merry Christmas to everybody.
Thank you. Mr. White?
Happy holidays to everybody, and I'll go ahead and set Public Works for Mr. Wright for 5:55, which probably should be about enough time.
Sounds good.
Question.
Yes.
Can you do it like before so that we can get a report to finance on that one item?
Yeah.
Can you do like maybe 4:45?
Yeah, you want to do that?
That'd be
Okay.
better. 'Cause
What we
set
do,
Public Works
if it's that short, why don't we do 450?
Well, why don't we do 4:45? It
You're
might,
right.
it might take that 15 minutes.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Anything else, Mr. White?
No. Thank you.
Ms. Andrus?
Yes, I would like to thank the seventh grade at Homewood Middle School for having me in to speak to them about City Council. I know, Mayor, I know you do that often as well. You get to speak with them. My son is a seventh grader, so he invited me to speak with him this year, and got to tell him about your job, got to tell him about our job, Mr. Limbaugh's job, and how the city works, everyone in the departments here. And so we had a great discussion and a lot of great questions and really fun time. So I want to thank them for having me.
Thank you. Two things. One, I want to commend, I want it on record that I want to commend the fire department. I happen to live at Hallman Hill with about 70 other residents of Homewood, and we've had some real challenges with alarm systems and that sort of thing, but fire has been incredibly patient and tolerant of us old people, so we're very appreciative of that. So I want that on record. That's important. I understand. The other thing I want to say is I do think that this is a good council in terms of working with one another. We don't always agree. That's okay. But for 2017, I think we've always kept what's best for Homewood in the forefront, and our communication and our votes and our ability to work together have certainly shown that. So, and not just the council, mayor and your office and your folks as well. And even though she just left, I'd have to brag on Melody Salter. I mean, I don't know how many other human beings could actually juggle this many balls, but she manages to do it. So with that, thank you very much. And Mr. Wolverton has...
I remembered the main thing that I wanted to say was to thank Mr. Pugh for the pictures and everything. That was a huge help today, and so if we have any more in the future, that would be appreciated. And one last thing, I'm excited about the pizzeria and the fitness facility, Nexus, that should be opening up beginning of February, and they are doing some pre-sale discounted memberships that would be good through however long you hold your membership. So if that at all interests you, you can get on the ball ahead of time and continue to save money in the future.
Literally, you could get on the ball, right?
That too.
With that, we'll stand adjourned. Thank you.
Public Services.